to a place you might not know much about, Severny Island.
Severny Island. Yeah, it's part of the Novaya Zemlya archipelago.
Novaya Zemlya.
Way up in the Russian Arctic. It's huge, actually.
Huge, okay.
The 30th largest island in the world.
Wow.
And nobody lives there.
So uninhabited.
Yeah.
In the Arctic. I guess I would just picture it as a big frozen wasteland.
Well, that's where things get interesting.
Yeah.
This island has a history that's tied to some pretty major events of the 20th century.
Okay.
And some incredible natural features, too.
All right, so paint me a picture. What are we talking about here?
Okay, so imagine this. 40% of Severny Island is covered by this massive sheet of ice, the Severny Island ice cap. It's the largest glacier in Europe.
Wow.
By both area and volume.
That's a lot of ice.
It is a lot of ice.
I bet the views are incredible.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Yeah.
I think numerous glaciers, many of them flowing right into the sea.
Mm.
You know, actually, the Wikipedia gallery has a really striking image.
Okay.
Of the Inostrantsiv Glacier terminus.
Inostrantsiv Glacier.
Yeah.
Okay.
It really captures that drama. You know, those walls of ice meeting the ocean.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. But ice isn't exactly dynamic. What else is going on in this frozen world?
Well, it might seem static.
Yeah.
But this ice sheet is constantly changing, especially with climate change.
Right.
Scientists are using satellite imagery, specifically from the Copernicus Sentinel-2 mission.
Copernicus.
Yeah, to keep a close eye on these formations.
I see.
This mission, by the way, is it's part of the European Union's Earth Observation Program.
Okay.
And it's providing valuable data to help us understand how the Arctic is responding to climate change.
So we can actually see the effects in real time thanks to this imagery.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, it is.
Speaking of climate change.
Yeah.
One of the Copernicus articles mentioned something about some unusual bird sightings on Severny Island back in the summer of 2020, birds way up in the Arctic. It doesn't seem right.
You're right. It is unusual.
Yeah.
What we're seeing is that stronger winds brought on by climate change are pushing bird species further north than they would typically go.
So even though the Arctic seems isolated,
right,
it's directly impacted by what's happening globally.
Exactly. It's all interconnected.
Wow, it's amazing. So we have this vast, icy landscape, and climate change is having a real impact. But I feel like there's more to this island story.
There is. You see, Severny Island also has a history that's deeply intertwined with human activity.
I know it was once named Litke Land after an explorer named Friedrich Benjamin von Litke. Did something happen to change that?
It did. In the mid-20th century, Severny Island, specifically a location called Cape Sukhoi-Nos, became a major site for Soviet nuclear testing.
Cape Sukhoi-Nos.
Yeah.
Okay.
This period, from 1958 to 1961, marked a significant chapter in the Cold War and forever changed the landscape of the island.
That's quite a contrast. From pristine wilderness to a nuclear testing ground?
Yeah, it is. And it's here that we encounter one of the most infamous events in history.
Okay.
The testing of the Tsar Bomba in 1961.
The Tsar Bomba. I've heard that name. Remind me, what's so significant about it?
The Tsar Bomba was the most powerful nuclear weapon ever detonated.
Wow.
It had a yield of 50 megatons of TNT.
TNT, I vaguely remember that from chemistry class, but refresh my memory.
Yeah, sure. So TNT stands for trinitrotoluene.
Okay.
And it's used as a standard measure for explosive power.
I see.
So to put that 50 megaton yield in perspective, that's the equivalent of 50 million tons of TNT exploding all at once.
Oh my goodness. That's an unimaginable amount of destructive power.
It is. And the Tsar Bomba was actually a scaled-down version.
Wow.
It was initially designed to have a 100 megaton yield.
100?
But even the Soviets deemed that too powerful for a test.
So they intentionally made it less powerful. That's chilling to think what the full-scale bomb would have been capable of.
The potential consequences were too great. Even with the reduced yield, the impact was devastating.
I can't even imagine. What kind of damage did a blast that powerful cause?
Well, a Wikipedia article describes the destruction of a village called Severny.
Severny?
Yeah.
Okay.
Located 34 miles away from ground zero. Every single building,
wow,
whether made of wood or brick, was completely obliterated.
34 miles away and everything gone. It's hard to wrap your head around that level of destruction.
It really is. And it adds another layer of complexity to Severny Island.
Yeah.
A place where the pristine beauty of the Arctic landscape intersects with a stark reminder of humanity's capacity for destruction.
So we have this island marked by both natural wonders and this dark moment in human history. What's the state of Severny Island today? Is it still a desolate wasteland?
Well, it might surprise you, but despite its history, life has persisted on Severny Island.
Really?
In fact, there's a photo in the Wikipedia gallery showing walruses lounging on the shore.
Walruses.
Yeah.
That makes sense given its location.
Right.
But is it still completely abandoned?
Not exactly. Severny Island now hosts a Russian army base and harbor,
Okay.
and it's also home to a meteorological station at Cape Zelania, the island's northernmost point.
So even in this remote corner of the world, there's a human presence. It makes you wonder about the lasting impacts of those nuclear tests and how they might still be influencing the island today.
Absolutely. It's a question worth exploring.
It is.
Yeah, it does raise questions.
Yeah.
While the immediate dangers of the nuclear testing period have passed,
Right.
there's always that question, of
Yeah.
long-term environmental effects.
Sure.
Researchers are still studying how the tests might have impacted the island's ecosystem.
That makes sense. Even though nobody lives there permanently,
Right.
any lasting contamination could affect the wildlife
Exactly.
and that delicate balance of the Arctic environment. You mentioned earlier that climate change is already impacting Severny Island.
Yeah.
What are some of the specific changes we're seeing, and how might they affect the island's future?
One of the most significant concerns is the melting of the Severny Island ice cap.
Okay.
As temperatures rise, we're seeing increased glacial melt, which contributes to rising sea levels globally.
Right.
But locally,
Yeah.
this melting could reshape the island's coastline.
So the island itself might actually change shape over time.
As the ice cap shrinks,
Wow.
new land could be exposed, and existing shorelines might erode or shift.
Oh, wow.
This would have a significant impact on the habitats of various species
Sure.
that call Severny Island home.
We were talking about those walruses earlier.
Right.
Would rising sea levels and shifting coastlines affect them?
Absolutely. Walruses rely on sea ice for hunting and breeding. As ice patterns change, it can disrupt their ability to find food and raise their young.
I see.
And it's not just walruses.
Right.
Seals and polar bears also depend on that delicate balance of the Arctic ecosystem.
It's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
One change triggers a cascade of impacts throughout the entire food web.
That's a great way to put it. The Arctic is a complex and interconnected system,
Right.
and even seemingly small changes
Yeah.
can have ripple effects throughout the environment.
And we're seeing these changes happen at an accelerated pace.
Exactly.
Because of climate change.
The Arctic is warming at twice the rate of the rest of the planet,
Wow.
which makes it a crucial area to study and understand.
It's like this one island, Severny Island,
Right.
is a microcosm of the larger challenges facing the Arctic as a whole.
That's a very insightful observation.
Thanks.
Severny Island,
Yeah.
with its unique history and its location on the front lines of climate change,
Right.
offers a valuable window into the complex interactions
Yeah.
between human activities and the natural world.
We've talked about the potential impacts on wildlife.
Yeah.
But what about the Russian military base and the meteorological station?
Right.
Are they vulnerable to the effects of climate change as well?
It could be. Rising sea levels could threaten coastal infrastructure and the thawing of permafrost.
Permafrost.
Yeah, ground that's been frozen for at least 2 years
Okay.
could damage buildings and roads.
So even the human presence on the island isn't immune to these changes.
That's right. Climate change presents challenges for everyone and everything in the Arctic,
Wow.
from the smallest organisms to the largest human-made structures.
It's fascinating and a little bit daunting to think about how much is at stake.
It is.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to remember that we're not just passive observers in this process.
Right.
We have the capacity to understand these changes and take action to mitigate the negative impacts.
So what can we do? How can we apply what we've learned about Severny Island and the Arctic to make a difference?
First and foremost, we need to stay informed.
Okay.
The more we understand about climate change and its effects on the Arctic,
Yeah.
the better equipped we are to make informed decisions
Right.
and advocate for change. There are many excellent resources available,
Okay.
from scientific journals to reputable news outlets, that can provide us with the knowledge we need.
That's a great starting point. But are there things we can do on a more personal level to make a difference?
Absolutely. Even small changes in our daily lives can add up.
Like what?
Reducing our carbon footprint by making more sustainable choices is a great place to start.
Okay.
Supporting businesses and organizations that prioritize environmental responsibility is also important. And let's not forget the power of our voices.
Right.
We can advocate for policies that address climate change. and support research and conservation efforts in the Arctic.
It can feel overwhelming at times,
Yeah.
but it's important to remember that we're not powerless.
Exactly.
Right.
Every action we take, no matter how small,
Right.
can contribute to a more sustainable future for the Arctic and for the planet as a whole.
This entire deep dive has been eye-opening.
Good.
I started off thinking Severny Island was just an icy rock in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
but it's so much more than that.
It is Severny Island with its dramatic landscapes,
Mhm.
its unique history,
Right.
and its vulnerability to climate change.
Yeah.
Embodies the challenges and opportunities facing the Arctic region today. It's a place that it deserves our attention and our efforts to protect it.
It certainly does. And speaking of protecting it, one thing that keeps coming back to me is the legacy of the Tsar Bomba test.
Right.
Is there any way to remediate the environmental damage caused by those nuclear tests?
That's a complex question.
Yeah.
The long-term impacts of nuclear testing,
Right.
they can be difficult to assess
Yeah,
and even more difficult to address.
I imagine so.
While the immediate threat of radiation might have subsided, there's always that potential for residual contamination
Right.
in the soil and water.
So even though it's been decades,
Yeah,
the effects of those tests might still be lingering?
it's possible.
Wow.
Scientists are still studying the long-term environmental consequences
Yeah.
of nuclear testing.
Yeah.
The good news is
Okay.
that nature has an incredible capacity for resilience and recovery,
That's good.
but it's a process that takes time.
That makes me think about those images of walruses on the shore.
Yeah.
It's reassuring to see life thriving in a place with such a heavy history.
It is. It is a powerful image of resilience,
Yeah.
and it underscores the importance of our efforts to protect this fragile ecosystem.
This whole deep dive has really driven home the point that what happens in the Arctic doesn't stay in the Arctic.
Right.
It has global implications.
That's exactly right. The Arctic plays a critical role in regulating the Earth's climate,
Yeah.
and the changes we're seeing there are impacting weather patterns, sea levels, and ecosystems around the world.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Severny Island, what's the one key takeaway you'd like to leave our listener with?
I think it would be this. Severny Island, with its history of both natural wonders and human impacts, serves as a powerful reminder of our interconnectedness with the planet. What happens in this remote corner of the world matters for all of us, and it highlights the importance of informed action. By understanding the challenges facing the Arctic and taking steps to address them, we can contribute to a more sustainable future for ourselves and for generations to come.
Well said. This has been an incredible journey to Severny Island, a place most people have never even heard of, but one that holds profound lessons for us all. Thanks for guiding us through this deep dive.
It's been my pleasure. I hope this has sparked a curiosity in our listener to continue exploring and learning about the Arctic and the important role it plays in our world.
I'm sure it has. And for our listener, remember that every journey starts with a single step. Even small actions can make a difference. So stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring. Until next time,